Hey, welcome back. And if you're new here, my name's Christina Kent, and I'm a fine artist based out of San Francisco. And today I wanted to talk about a fable or a myth that's been on my mind a lot recently that I think can be really illustrative of the creative path, especially for those of us who had a creative life when we were younger and then kind of put it aside and are recently coming back to our creativity. And that is the story of the red shoes. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with this fable, I'll give you a brief recap of how it goes. So, basically, there's a young girl, she's pretty poor, but she's kind of making her way. And as she goes about her daily life, she lives a really simple life, really humble means, but she's made these handmade red shoes that are her pride and joy, and she just loves to wear them, she loves to use them. They just bring her so much joy. Then one day, this beautiful gilded carriage comes along, and there's an old woman inside, and she sees the poor girl, and she takes pity on her, and she says, "Come with me, come into my carriage, you can come live with me, and I'll take care of you, and life will be good." And so the girl, seeing the beauty of the carriage, seeing the luxury and the comfort, she readily agrees. But once the girl gets to the old woman's house, she realizes that there is a trade off. The old woman expects her to behave in a certain way. She doesn't like certain aspects of the girl's personality, and so the girl has to kind of rein herself in and control herself. And worst of all, the old woman sees the girl's handmade red shoes, and she takes them and she throws them away, saying that they're not fit in her household. The girl is really sad to have the shoes taken away, but at the same time, she really loves the comfort and the stability, the safety that she has in the old woman's house. So she lets go of her shoes, she grieves the loss of her shoes, and she says, "You know what, this is okay, it's worth it. It's worth it for this safety and comfort." But in the back of her mind, this girl's desire for the red shoes never really goes away. And one day when the woman offers to buy her some brand new shoes, they go to the shoe store, and she sees these bright red, beautiful shiny shoes on the counter. Now the old woman doesn't have very good eyesight, and so she agrees to buy these completely ostentatious red shoes for the girl. And the girl is just so happy. She's overcome with joy. She can't stop wearing the shoes, even though everyone looks at her and thinks they look ridiculous. She is just so happy to have this beautiful pair of red shoes. But one day she runs into a sketchy old guy in the village, and he sees her red shoes and he says, "Oh, you're gonna dance in those shoes." And he gives the shoes a little tap, and all of a sudden, the girl feels a little itch in her feet, and then she feels the need to move, the need to fidget, and before she knows it, she starts to dance. At first, she enjoys the dance. She feels free in her movement, and she's super excited to be just expressing her joy and enjoying these red shoes. But pretty soon, she starts to get tired. She starts to get anxious. She doesn't understand why she actually can't stop dancing. She tries to get her feet to slow down, but they seem to have taken on a life of their own. So she dances and dances and dances, going from house to house, trying to see if anyone can help her, and it seems like no one can. Finally, she goes to someone's house, and they happen to have an axe. And I'll spare you the gory details, but let's just say it doesn't end well for the girl. So this is a really dark, foreboding story, but I think it holds within it a lot of important lessons for our creative practice. And I want to explain by giving an example through my own story and talking about how it relates to the story of this fable. So when I was younger, I was really into drawing and painting, and I would do it all the time, and it was something that I just absolutely loved. It just filled my heart with joy, and I didn't think I could make a career out of it or anything, but it was something that I loved so much that I just wanted to do it anyway. And I think of that as me being the poor girl with the handmade red shoes. It wasn't like they were going to be taking her anywhere, but it was something pure, something that she'd made herself, something that she really cherished. As I got older, though, I started looking for a means of creating some security and stability in my life, of making money, of being successful in the world. And so I turned to what I thought was a good career path. That is, I was good at maths and I liked psychology, so I thought maybe economics and business would be a great career path for me. I thought that it would lead to a life of success, a life of comfort. It would help me find some stability. And for me, that turning away from art and towards the thing that was more prestigious, the thing that I got more more, I guess, approval for, more recognition for, the thing that seemed higher status and to give me a more stable career, that was me going from my red shoes to the gilded carriage. And sure enough, when I got wrapped up in the world of economics and business, there seemed to be no space for art making. There seemed to be no space for emotion, for intuition, for beauty. And so I kind of took my art making and I really pushed it aside. I didn't throw it away completely. Like, I would still do sketches here and there, a painting maybe once a year, but I really had kind of pushed it under the radar, thinking this is not for me anymore. I have this new life in my gilded carriage, in my comfortable house, and this is the life for me. And yet, every time I would see someone pursuing a creative path, every time I would hear about some artist having an exhibition, I would feel the deepest jealousy within me. So I knew that this thing that I was ignoring, it was still something that was deeply important to me, and it was something that wouldn't fully let me go. But then the pandemic happened, and I got a chance to take a step back from my economics work and have a bit more time to think about what I really wanted. And I decided to get back into painting. I bought some paints, I set up a small studio space in my home, and I started doing daily paintings. And as soon as I picked up the brushes again, I just felt this flood of inspiration. All these ideas that it seemed like had been building up over the past few years just were bursting out of me. And to me, this connects to the part of the story where the girl goes to the shoe store, finds those beautiful red shoes, and falls immediately in love. And she puts them on, and she just feels great, and she even starts to dance in them and feels like herself again. And ever since that moment, I feel like I've been riding this creative wave of inspiration, and I've just been painting so much. I've been learning, growing, expanding my work. I just feel like it's been, just this huge creative breakthrough for me that I'm so appreciative for. And honestly, it's really intoxicating. And that's where the story turns into a cautionary tale, because we see the girl get these red shoes. She has been kind of starved of her true self. She was forced to throw away her handmade red shoes. She finally gets a chance at what she feels like are her red shoes, to be herself, to express herself again. And she ends up going just completely off the rails. And I feel this within myself. It's when our love for something can turn into an unhealthy obsession. And it's a balance, and it's a question that I'm constantly asking myself. Like, how much painting is too much? How much time spent working on art and in the studio? Like, at one point, does it go from a beautiful practice into an unhealthy obsession? I also hear about a lot of artists who do art full time, and they find that what they originally loved about art, they end up losing it as they turn their art into a business and as they're trying to find success as artists, like commercial or even reputational success. It seems like a common story where something that we used to love can turn into something that we don't even recognize anymore, and that can even lead to our downfall. And I think this is especially dangerous for people who feel like they've been creatively starved in parts of their lives, which probably honestly is most of us, because life is hard, and it's not like we can just be creating as much as we want all the time. But definitely, like in my case, I felt like for years I was putting my creativity aside and I wasn't able to express that part of myself. And then once I started painting again and I realized that, oh, I think I could actually make a career out of this, then I just felt this huge desire to be painting all the time and to be constantly improving my work and to make it the best. Like, now that I actually have this opportunity to be painting, and especially now that I'm doing it full time, I just want it to be the absolute best it can be, and I really want to give it 100%. But I think what this story is telling us is that obsession is not healthy, and it's important that like if we want to maintain the purity for what we love, then we need to engage with it in a healthier way. And so I'm not sure exactly how to manage this with my own practice, but it is something that I've been thinking about a lot. And I think like the first step, as it goes with a lot of things on the creative path and potential risks and pitfalls, the first step is to be aware that this pitfall exists and just to be like mindful of it. Because if you're like me and you're pursuing a creative path, you don't want to burn out. You don't want to use up all of your inspiration and end up no longer like end up wondering why you were even making art in the first place. You want to hold on to that beautiful joy, that connection, that love that you have for your art. So the question I've been asking myself is, how do I build a sustainable creative career? One where I maintain that love for my art for years, for decades, for hopefully my entire life. So I'm not sure the best way to build a long-term sustainable creative practice, but I've been thinking about a few different things. First, one of the things I try to think about is, when I'm going to make art, is it because I feel in my heart that I really want to make it? Am I motivated by joy, or am I motivated by anxiety and fear? Am I motivated by this fear that I don't know how long this creative freedom will last, so I need to make paintings? Does it come out of kind of this anxious need to create rather than this joyful desire to create? And if I feel like the motivation is coming from anxiety, then sometimes what I do is I actually just leave the studio that day and I'll go for a walk, or I'll spend time with my partner, or I'll call friends and family and talk to them. Like, I will actively say, you know what, I'm not going to create if it's driven by anxiety. Because that's another thing. When you have been starved of a creative life, and then you come back to one, you might have that thought in the back of your mind, like, how long is this going to last? I may as well go as hard as I can, make as much as I can, because I don't know how long this is going to last. And unfortunately, I think that sort of mindset can actually end up being our creative downfall. The other thing that I try to do is to make sure that I have a healthy life and lots of good things happening outside of my creativity. So I make sure to spend time with my partner, with friends and family. I make sure to take care of my health, my physical fitness. So I exercise, I try to get really good sleep, I meditate, I go outside. Like, I try to make sure that I am caring for my relationships, my body, my mental health, and not let painting, or not let my desire to create, sort of take over any of those domains. Because if you're like me, maybe sometimes you've been in the studio and you just want to paint all night and keep yourself up, like drinking tons of coffee and keeping on working on the creative project. But in the end, that's just not a sustainable way to live. And that is going to hurt your health in the long run, which ultimately will prevent you from creating work in the future. Because I know how it is. Sometimes we feel this need to create, and so we end up spending long hours in the studio. Maybe we even stay up all night. We don't get good sleep, and that ultimately will impact our health and make it harder for us to create in the long run. So like I said, I don't know all the answers of how to create a sustainable creative career, but these are some of the things that I've been trying to do to keep my creative practice healthy and prevent myself from falling into obsession. I know it's kind of a grim story, but I think it's really important to talk about, because mostly when I've heard this story, it's about artists who have crashed and burned, rather than artists who have found a way to have a sustainable creative life. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the subject. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, or feel free to share some tips if you've experienced this yourself, or you have tips on how to have a long, sustainable creative career. And if you liked this fable and want to learn more about myths and how they can relate to the creative life, I highly recommend the book Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. It's mostly aimed at women artists, women creatives, but I think it has a lot of great stories that a lot of people can relate to. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, a huge shout out to my supporters on Patreon. You guys are amazing. Thank you for supporting this channel and for making these videos happen. If you like my art, if you like my videos, and you want to help me make more, check out my Patreon at the link. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.